Well, hello there, watching the press preview. A first look at what is on the front pages. Time to see then what is making the headlines with the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, and the Sun on Sunday's political editor, Kate Ferguson. Welcome and great to see both of you. Front pages, though, let us start, shall we, with the Eye, which says mortgage rates could hit 7% by the end of the summer. The Financial Times has a story concerning the increasing cost of government borrowing. The Express accuses members of the House of Lords of wanting to defy the will of the people in the handling of the small boats crisis. The Star reports on the trial of a young man who's accused of breaking into the grounds of Windsor Castle with a crossbow in 2021 and now claims he was goaded to kill Queen Elizabeth by an AI chatbot. That is also the main story for the Daily Mail. AI chatbot told Windsor intruder. The Mirror speaks again to the TV presenter Fiona Phillips, who yesterday revealed her diagnosis of Alzheimer's to the paper. The Guardian hears that lung cancer diagnoses among women now outnumber those among men for the first time. The Metro aims to raise £1 million to go towards the cancer treatment of toddler Hallie Reeve. And the Times reports on the Labour leader Keir Starmer pledging to put speaking fluently and clearly at the heart of the national curriculum. Well, a reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of those papers while you watch us. So let's head to our guests tonight, Kevin Maguire and Kate Ferguson. And Kevin, why don't you kick off with the Eye, this warning, which they had in yesterday's paper, of 4 more rate rises to come, 7% even by the end of the summer.
No, absolutely. Mortgage brokers warning that's what it could cost to take out a loan, buy a home, moving up to 6% now. Huge financial headache for people who are either coming off fixed-term mortgages, were used to very low interest rates, or are trying to get a first mortgage. But it's also a massive political headache for the government because, as the Eye say now, the majority of Conservative voters blame the government for the rise. I think that will go back to Liz Truss. Of course, there have been other factors since, but the UK Tory government's taking the hit. And in the run-up to the general election, people having to pay more for their mortgages is a huge vote loser.
Well, not everyone has a mortgage in this country, do they, Kate? So the problem is you're trying to have a Bank of England intervention, which has an immediate impact, and many of those have fixed-rate mortgages. So the squeeze seems to be lagged and therefore take longer, so those people are in more pain. Can I put it like that?
Yeah, what you're seeing is the pain kind of delayed. And so as people come off their fixed, they're going to be whacked with these extra charges. I mean, 6%, 7%, these are eye-watering mortgage rates compared to what we've been used to in recent years. And it's going to be really, really painful. I mean, Kevin's totally right. The Tories, if any, what are the Tories if they're not the party of home ownership? And there is a big danger here that the public or their voters blame them for this mortgage pain. And I think it's going to be interesting to see these by-elections coming up, because some of the there's some research out there which sort of shows which seats could be particularly hit by this mortgage crunch. And one of the seats that looks to be particularly hit is Selby, which has a by-election on July 20th. So it would be very interesting to see the result there. Do we see the beginnings of this kind of mutiny of the mortgage holders against the Tories?
Yes, and some suggestion we'll get the report on the groping allegation towards the MP Chris Pincher. Very soon, tomorrow, Parliament Standards Watchdog. Will that trigger a by-election? We wait and see. They're racking them up, the Conservative Party, aren't they? One difficulty for the government, the other in the FT, is that government borrowing costs as well, are starting to look extremely ugly, and that impacts all the spending on all the public services and all the pressure on all those services that we've heard so much about, Kevin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There we are. Government selling 4 billion of debt called a gilt. It's now costing rates not seen for something like 25 years. This is a huge problem. Of course, getting the national debt down was one of Rishi Sunak's own goals, or the goals he set himself by the end of the year. It's actually gone up and topped 100% of GDP for the first time since 1961. But he was going to have to pay a lot more to service that national debt. Well, debt in itself will then go up, and there'll also be less for public services as the government plans a budget and a Queen's speech and a financial statement. There are those big set pieces in which you would try and change the political mood, ignoring for a moment those by-elections, which Kate mentions, and are going to be absolutely incredibly difficult. Even if you hold Selby, and you just hold it, it might mean you're not going to go completely down, but it doesn't mean you're going to win a general election. You're still on for something of a hiding. But no, the government having to pay more to service the debt will just increase the debt total. And so it's almost everywhere you look today in the papers or in tomorrow's papers is economic bad news, and that's both for individuals, voters, families and businesses, but it's also political dynamite for the government.
Well, the Metro has picked up on one family who are trying to save the life of their young daughter, who suggest that their only option is go to a private US clinic, now trying to privately raise those funds of something like £1 million. We've heard lots of cases like this, and, you know, the cost of medicine goes up, and the specific types of treatment, do we just not have it here in the UK?
Well, in this story, which makes the front page of the Metro tomorrow, it seems to be a tragic little tale about a little girl who has a rare form of cancer. So you're looking at very experimental therapy, which is why it seems to only be available in the US. As you say, her family is raising, I think it's £1 million to try and raise the money to send this child to that experimental therapy. And it looks like they've already raised something like 300,000. So you see the generosity of the British people there. But it's interesting, it comes on the front page of the paper tomorrow. We've obviously just marked the 75th anniversary of the NHS today. And the Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, all in Westminster Abbey, kind of paying homage, paying tribute to the NHS today, but scratched beneath the surface, and our National Health Service is in quite a lot of trouble, spiralling waiting times, people struggling to see a GP or doctor, people struggling to see a dentist. And what's clear is that it's going to be one of the crunch issues of the next election. And whatever party gets into government next time, Tory or Labour, I think you're going to see them start to grapple with, well, what do we do to reform the NHS? We can't keep pouring billions and billions and billions into it and just seeing worse and worse results.
Yes, but we will, because, you know, the population's ageing, and the revolution in healthcare in terms of medicine and tech will continue. For example, the things listed today, AI to speed up breast cancer diagnosis, a trial starting next year, the suggestion that the UK was the first healthcare system in the world to offer whole genome sequencing for rare diseases and cancer, a warning from the Tony Blair Institute, you know, this adapt or die, that the NHS needs to fully embrace the tech revolution. It all costs money, Kevin, doesn't it, as we get older? So the pressures won't go away.
No. I mean, look, we're living longer, which is a great thing. We require more medical care to do so, and ways are being discovered to save people who would have once died. You're right, it all costs money. Innovation costs money. New technology costs money. Prevention programs cost money, but will save in the long term. Shifting to communities away from hospitals to meet new healthcare needs, well, that will cost money in the transformation. No, it's incredible, and satisfaction levels with the NHS, as we saw, are way down on its 75th birthday, but people still hold it very dear. There's widespread opposition to charging for treatment, and well, you know, any government that says it would start charging, I think would suffer very severely at the polls, given the NHS is the nearest we have to a national religion, as Nigel Lawson, the Tory Chancellor, said back in the, I think it was sometime in the 1980s. But you know, this story on the front of the Metro, it is somebody having to go private because there's a gap in the NHS. They tried a stem cell transplant in for this little girl up Birmingham way. It didn't work. So they're trying to raise that million, as Kate says, 360 million raised in 5 days. But it's an area where going for some treatment called CART therapy in a US clinic, yeah, it's worked for some other people. You can see the desperate family why they're trying to do it, but you've got to say on the 75th anniversary of the NHS, I'm a huge supporter of the NHS. It is a failure. Maybe it's only a small failure compared to some of the bigger failures, that you can't get this in the UK. It's just not there. Waiting lists, by the way, Health Minister predict they're going to go up further from a record 7.4 million. That was another of Rishi Sunak's. I think we will just call them own goals now, when there is his own goals that he seems not to be able to score in the right net. He's putting them in his own end.
Yeah, well, they still say they're optimistic to get many of them, but you're right, this is going to be a tricky one, I think, isn't it? Record demand, record delays, waiting lists, simply a sign of demand outstripping supply. Strikes don't help, COVID backlog doesn't help.
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing is very difficult. Kate, I was going to move on. Did you want to you wanted to say something, I think?
No, it feels like with the NHS, you know, there's just so many problems piling up and up. You know, you solve one strike, another one seems to be announced. You've got the COVID backlog. I would say that while obviously AI and innovation costs money, it probably would also save money in the long term. There's so much repetition, wasted man hours in the NHS.
OK, yeah, and I think they're definitely trying to push that way, aren't they? Including piloting blood tests which could detect cancer before symptoms appear. I mean, in a sense, we should be heartened by all the changes, but, you know, a long way to go. Kate, why don't you take us through the Just Stop Oil protest at Wimbledon? You know, big delays of people trying to get in because of searches. This was a jigsaw box, was it, that allowed this protest to happen?
Yes, this is perhaps the country's most hated man now, who leapt out from the stands to unveil this kind of jigsaw box which had this orange confetti, and the tennis players had to kind of scrabble around on the floor to pick it up. It obviously interrupted play, and we're all on high alert to see if they do it again this week. The thing with the Just Stop Oil protesters is that they're just doing, you talk about Rishi Sunak's own goals, these are just massive own goals for them. You know, each time they disrupt a national sporting event, Wimbledon, we saw it at the snooker. It was a different group, but related, Animal Rising at the Grand National. They just seem to infuriate the whole country as well. Our head is left as our hands, and you just think, what are you doing? Don't you realise you're turning people against your cause? And this comes on the day where the Home Secretary had the police round for this round table to talk about what more they could do to crack down on these protesters. Because while everyone's on high alert, while there's kind of airport-style security checks at Wimbledon to try and catch these people before they go in, it seems that they're still getting in and disrupting all these sporting events.
It also comes on the day when NASA satellite imagery shows that the Earth's energy heat imbalance broke more records. A lot more heat is accumulating, which, of course, much of it absorbed by the oceans, which have been rising. Yeah. So, you know, how do you get your message across? Is it the wrong approach? Or do people need to sit up and take notices and not try and get cheap fossil fuels again, despite the cost of living crisis?
Yeah, I'm absolutely with the cause. I'm not sure the protests draw attention actually normally to the cause. It's what's now described as performative art. It's the protest itself. I think it was rather a nice touch using one of Wimbledon's own jigsaws that you could buy in a shop, and they've now been withdrawn. But you're going to have really tight security. But these people are absolutely non-violent. They're not threatening anybody physically. They're not trying to get knives or weapons in. And I think it's almost impossible if someone's going to stick some confetti down their pants, you're going to discover it, and then they're going to go into a shop and buy a jigsaw. I mean, it's those protests, I just think they're actually impossible to stop. And
Kevin, let's go to your paper, shall we? The Daily Mirror, which continues the news about Fiona Phillips, who has revealed that she has Alzheimer's, which is, as she has said, has taken a whole big chunk out of my life, but also her family's as well.
Yeah, it's ravaged her family. Lost her mother and father to it. Now it's, as she put it in her own words, come for her. But she's incredibly sharp, bright, funny, mischievous. But she was diagnosed last year. She's only 62. All of a sudden, she can't remember some recent conversations or dinners with her husband, Martin Frizzell, the head of This Morning over on ITV. But she's very defiant because she's saying, look, we've got to find a cure. And she's taking part in drug trials, which she hopes will help other people down the line. But it's incredibly sad and tragic. I know many families will have experienced it, but of course she will know where this leads from having seen her mother and father be taken by it. And she did a TV documentary on it, and spoke about her mother screaming in her home and so on. So I think it must be particularly difficult when people so close and near and dear to you have gone with this, that it's now claiming you, because you will have seen the end game, and it isn't pleasant. No.
And you will know, because she will have looked after her mother and father, how much she will need to be looked after in the future, how many, repetitive phone conversations there'll be, how things have to be labelled, how diaries have to be written, how lists have to be made. She'll know all of that will put a lot of pressure on her family as well. So that, adds, as you say, to the difficulties for her, the knowledge of it all. Kate, let's go to the Metro, shall we? Charles I, crowned by the Scots. Some great pictures, lovely red arrows today. Some controversy too, protesters in the crowds and the Greens not showing up.
Oh, yeah, well, you sort of get this a bit, don't you? A sort of handful of protesters in the crowd saying, oh, we don't like the king or whatever. But I think most of us quite enjoy the pageantry. I certainly always enjoy it when they sort of get any crown jewels out and dress up and get formally for the formal coronation up in Scotland. The whole country was sort of watching it when it was back down in Westminster recently. So I think this is all quite good fun, isn't it? Most people just quite enjoy it. And I think the protesters are probably just a little bit bar humbug.
And I suppose
I think nothing...
Oh, go on,
yeah,
he's going to go off on one. Go on.
Nothing screams concern for the cost of living crisis than having a big pageantry and bringing the
it's once every 70 years,
Kevin. On, Kevin. That is a bit intuitive, isn't it?
Including a £22,000 new sword. I thought Scotland's got a higher proportion of Republicans. I think they're still a minority. I'm not pretending it's going to rise up against Charles the Unwanted and put him out, but it seemed a rather general shrug of indifference in Edinburgh. More people seem to be concerned there was a big traffic jam he caused.
That's just the people you heard. You heard the leader of the Greens on the radio. I know you did.
Their monarchy, don't they? I mean, what's the point in having monarchy if you don't have the pageantry, the giant swords, the big hats? Isn't that the point?
Yeah, and the history goes back, as you know, to James I of England and Scotland, James VI of Scotland. It's been all going on a long time, and for some people, it was a great day out. There we are. Both of you, say thank you very much indeed. See you next time. See you in the 11. Weather now.